Joshua Rodriguez, your presenter for this topic. In this video presentation, I will discuss some of the key concepts on managing students' behavior in the classroom. And also, later, I will discuss the 3 theories on students' behavior introduced by the well-known behaviorists Skinner, Glaser, and Kahn. So make sure to stay tuned till the end of this video to maximize learning. Again, this is Joshua Rodriguez saying let's do the math on managing students' behavior in the classroom.
A few moments later.
Okay, so let's now proceed with the discussion. Today's video is focused on the topic managing students' behavior in the classroom. So before I start, I'd like to first inform you that it is very important to actually understand the concept of managing students' behavior, especially that we are taking up the field of education. We are educators and are expected to cater the success or to assess the success of the learning process of the students. Now here are the learning outcomes for this lesson. Expect that at the end of this video or the lesson, you shall be able to design instructional materials to facilitate and manage students' behaviors in the classroom, and then develop classroom techniques for addressing behavioral issues. So as we go through the discussion, I am going to be discussing some strategies and approaches that will be very much of help for us to cope with the different behavioral problems that will be demonstrated by the students inside the classroom. Okay, let's now proceed with the students' behavior in the classroom. Let's define what is students' behavior, what is classroom management, and what is behavior management. Now, students' behavior in the classroom affects how much and how well the students learn. Behavior problems at school interfere with lessons and disturb other students. These problems often overwhelm teachers, particularly novices, and some consider them the most difficult aspect of a teacher's workday. In fact, managing student behavior is a factor associated with teacher burnout, stress, and dissatisfaction. Now, students' misbehavior has been and still is the main concern of educators. Yes, in fact, there may be no greater hurdle in public schools today than that presented by students who exhibit challenging behavior. Yes, behavioral problems in the classroom are still the main concern of all educators, no matter what field they are specializing. That is because behaviors of the students are a contributing factor to actually achieve the learning success. Now, if the behavior of the students demonstrated in the classroom are negative behaviors, then there is a greater chance that the students will not learn the lesson or the topic that is being taught inside the classroom. Unlike if the behavior is positive, the tendency is that the students will learn and that the learning outcomes are achieved. According to the National Comprehensive Center for Teacher Quality, organization of the classroom and the ability to handle students' actions effectively have a significant impact on each student. It means that the classroom management is a key and a driving force to achieve the learning success. Now, classroom management has been considered separately from classroom instruction. Yet everything that goes on in the classroom should be thought of as instruction. Yes, although classroom management and classroom instruction is defined separately, they work together. If we do classroom management, we have to say to it that all the activities done are in the form of instruction. Now, behavior management is one of the most critical areas of concern for teachers because it directly impacts students' academic performance. It cannot be separated from curriculum and instructional delivery. The use of effective instruction in the classroom should be thought of as a behavior management issue. You have to take note that behavior management involves the creation of successful learning environments for both classroom behavior and academic performance. Therefore, the focus should be on how to provide instruction in a manner that not only increases academic performance but also improves classroom behavior. Now, in behavior management, we are required to plan for instruction that will effectively boost the academic performance of the students and then increase the positive behaviors in the classroom. Okay, now let's proceed with the theories on behavior and classroom management. So we have three theories associated with this topic. We have Skinner's operant conditioning in 1960s, Glaser's choice theory in 1998, and then the last but not the least is Kahn's students directed learning theory in 2006. Now let's talk about Skinner's operant conditioning. According to B.F. Skinner, learning is a function of overt behavior improvement. Changes in actions are a product of the reactions of individuals to events or stimuli that occur in their environment. This means that the person is conditioned to respond similarly in the future when a stimulus response pattern is rewarded. Reinforcement or something that enhances the desired reaction is the answer to Skinner's theory. Now, for example, if we give positive feedbacks to our students, the tendency is that the student will perform better next time, the student will perform much better, the student will demonstrate positive behavior continuously, okay? The second theory is choice theory by William Glaser. According to Glaser, almost all action is picked and biology forces us to fulfill 5 fundamental needs. These are security, affection and belonging, strength, independence, and pleasure. The most significant requirement in the philosophy of choice is love and belonging, since interaction with others is needed as a foundation to fulfill all other needs. Therefore, the classroom should be a venue for students to fulfill their needs. Now, Glaser ideas teaches us to create and deliver lessons that will meet students' needs. His theory explains that building meaningful relationships with students and providing active, appropriate learning environments that enable students to show mastery and achievement is important to let the students demonstrate positive behaviors in the classroom. Now, here's our task as educators are to let students connect, feel a sense of competence and power, to have some freedom to express their thoughts, and enjoy themselves in a safe environment. Now, we always have to remember, church, that our purpose is to create a safe environment for the students to meet their needs, to be molded holistically, and to make them successful in learning. The last but not the least is the student-directed learning theory by Alfie Kahn. Now, Kahn believes that over time, societies focused on extrinsic motivation are still inefficient. In conventional education, he challenges the hierarchical systems at work. Positions of influence are unnaturally scarce, and such mechanisms presume that all persons have competitive disposition. He believes that constructive compliance merely inspires learners rather than actually knowing to pursue more positive enforcement. Kahn claims that curiosity of the students should decide what is learned. His theory suggests to keep the standard low and that standardized testing is important. This is because he believes that not all students learn at the same pace and at the same time, and that standards do not take this into account. Yes, that is true. That is because when students are interested with the lesson, they tend to cooperate with the lesson, and then more positive behaviors are demonstrated. Now, cheers, this theory teaches us educators to allow students to explore the topics that interest them most. Students should be able to think and write and explore without worrying about how good they are. To give you a deeper understanding on managing students' behavior in the classroom, let us first know the teacher's rule. Now, cheers, we need to understand that the behavior of the students inside the classroom are a direct product of the teacher's environment. Yes, that is because positive or negative student behavior is affected by teachers' performance in creating an effective environment for student learning experiences. Okay, so now let's proceed to the types of disruption. Now, first, it is also important to know what type of disruptive behaviors have occurred inside your classroom, okay? So that we can properly deal with the disruptive behavior. Now, today we are going to discuss 3 types of disruption. Now, the first one is the minor disruption, chronic disruption, and then the last but not the least is the major disruption. The first type of disruption is minor disruption, and these are behaviors that do not warrant punishment but still compromise learning. Example behaviors are tapping pen, whispers, doodling, giggling, and etc. Now, cheers, how do we deal with this kind of disruption? Now, if ever we encounter this kind of disruption, you can just quickly get quiet during the discussion or give a quick look to the students who are making the disruptive behavior, and also you can mention the name of the students who are making the behavior, okay? Now, first, what we have to remember is to not interrupt student learning. Whatever happens, learning must continue, okay? And don't overreact ever, okay? The second type of disruption is chronic disruption. After a minor disruption have occurred, you deal with it and then you address the problem, but still, if the behavior continued, that is already a chronic disruption. So according to its definition, it is the continuation of behavior even after being addressed by the teacher. So here's how do we deal with this kind of disruption. So if you have created a consequence, just gradually increase the degree of your consequence. Cheers, okay? Now, the next one is to document frequency. How many times did the behavior occurred, when, and where, okay? The next one is to impose collaborative resolutions and behavioral contract. The last one is to call the attention of the parents. But cheers, you can only call for the attentions of parents if it is already disrupting the learning continuously, okay? The next type of disruption is the major disruption. Now, these are the type of disruptions that endanger teachers and students. Example behaviors are distraction of property, fighting, starting fires, making threats, bringing in weapons. Okay, now, sirs, you have to make sure that you already read your school policies before responding to this kind of disruption, okay? Now, the first strategy is to know your student, check for medical issues. Whatever medical problems your students have, you always have to check for it before responding with the disruption, okay? Another is if it is a major incident like starting fires or bringing in weapons, you have to contact your administrator, okay? Here's just a bit of reminder. Before responding to any type of disruption, make sure that you maintain students' dignity and respect. Here are the key approaches to behavior management in the classroom. The first one is classroom organization, self-management, the second. The third is social development, and the last but not the least is the effective environment. The first approach is classroom organization. Now, one important aspect to behavior management is how the classroom is organized. Yes, sirs. So if our classrooms are well organized, we can easily manage the behavior of the students, and we can easily cope with the different behavioral problems that will happen inside our classrooms. Okay. Now, classroom organization involves using and teaching effective expectations and routines. Now, we have to set rules and expectations in order to organize our classroom. Now, expectations. When teachers use and teach effective expectations, the probability of problem behaviors occurring can be decreased. Okay, this is true. That is because when we create expectations, when we impose what we expect with the class, the probability that the behavioral problem will occur can be decreased. Okay. The next one is rules. Rules will inform students of the behavior that is expected of them, and therefore, if the students know what are the expected behavior they had to do, then the behavioral problems can be decreased. Okay. Now, here are the things to remember when creating rules. The first one is that you have to create at least 3 to 5 rules. Now, cheers, remember, 5 is the maximum, and 3 is the minimum. That is for your student to remember all of your rules, okay? Another is that it should be written in positive statement. So instead of saying don't be late, say arrive on time. So be clear and specific. Do not write your rules way too long because the tendency is that your student will forget it. Another, it should be student voice. So when creating your rule, make sure that the student is a participant. Make sure that the student will participate when creating the rules. So just remember that rules must apply to all students all of the time. No exceptions, okay? So routines is another factor that contributes to classroom organization. Now, effective classroom expectations are a critical aspect of preventing behavior management problems. However, an equally important and sometimes overlooked area is the teaching of classroom routines. If we observed an orderly classroom, we would see one where teachers have likely taken the time to teach students what to do in the classroom. In classes where routines and procedures are clearly delineated, taught, reviewed, and used, appropriate behavior is much more likely to occur and the class is more likely to run smoothly. For example, there should be a procedure when students are signaled to transition from one activity to another. There may be startup routines to get students ready for the day, such as a short activity for students to complete while teachers access materials. As with expectations, routines should be explicitly taught to help the smooth flow of the activities in a classroom. One area that takes up much of the time devoted to instruction is transitions, moving from one activity to the next, for example. Unfortunately, transitions tend to increase the likelihood that the students will misbehave. Thus, transition management is an important consideration in behavior management. According to Slavin 2009, transitions are the seams of class management at which classroom order is most likely to come apart. When teachers decrease their transition times, they are able to increase the time they have to instruct, which increases student motivation and decreases behavior management problems. Therefore, teachers should plan for transition and try to decrease the amount of time it takes for them to occur. Transitions can be improved by teaching the classroom expectations and routines, as described earlier. In addition, transitions can be improved by arranging the physical setting and the location of instructional materials so problem behavior is less likely to happen. Another approach to behavior management is self-management. One of the more effective behavior management methods used today for a variety of students is self-management training. Perhaps the most important self-management skill for students to learn is self-evaluation. Self-evaluation involves teaching students how to measure their own behavior against some specified standards. Teachers can show students how to self-evaluate by modeling the procedure and by providing accurate feedback based on students' performance. Now, the ultimate goal of self-evaluation is for students to determine independently if they met some pre-established response criterion. Let's proceed to another approach, the social development. Students must develop social behaviors to have meaningful relationships with their peers, teachers, and parents. Social competence is considered a critical skill in today's world. There is an ever-increasing need to work with others to solve the complex problems we face today. If students are not adept at working with others to complete a project or to solve a problem, they will be at a distinct disadvantage. Therefore, social behaviors must be supported in the classroom to the maximum extent possible. Now, first, we have to allow students to develop social behaviors by providing instructional activities that will let your students build a meaningful relationship with their peers. That is because when students work together, they can solve complex problems even though they just encountered that particular problem. Working with their peers allows them to express what they know and that collaborative learning takes place. So here are types of social behaviors that are important to learning. The first one is individual responsibilities. And then the second one is team responsibilities. Both of these, if this takes place in the classroom, learning success is achievable. Another approach to behavior management is effective instruction. Now, effective instruction increases student success and in turn decreases behavior problems. Yes, true. Because if we are successful in delivering the lesson, if we are effective in delivering the lesson and the instruction is effective, then the positive behaviors are more likely to occur. Now, effective instruction includes scaffolded instruction, structure and organization, differentiated instruction, opportunities to respond or OTR, positive and corrective feedback, and then motivational systems. Let's talk about scaffolded instruction. It involves instructional components that move students from little to no knowledge of a skill to a demonstration of skills or knowledge at high levels. To better understand scaffolded instruction, here are the 5 components of scaffolded instruction. The first one is explicit modeling. So explicit modeling involves demonstrating the skill to be learned to students. The background knowledge necessary to complete the task may be provided. New content is presented in this component of instruction. Clear goals and objectives for the skill are given. Step-by-step instructions and directions are explained, and careful demonstration are used. The presentation of new content is often referred to as teacher demonstration or the I do of instruction. Following explicit modeling, guided practice opportunities are provided. It is also called prompted practice. Now, it is the we do of instruction because the teacher is actively participating in the students. Okay? So, during guided practice, the level of assistance begins to fade as the students perform the tasks. Feedback is provided based on students' performance. Once students are performing at least 80% correct in guided practice, independent practice is used, or that is what we call monitoring. During independent practice, students show what they know by demonstrating the skill without teacher support. This practice is also known as the you do of instruction. During independent practice, the teacher actively monitors student performance and reteaches if students are not at least 80% successful. Once students demonstrate skills independently, they should be assessed for mastery in a format they will likely to experience in the future. Example, standardized test format. Okay? So now this assessment serves as a measure of skill generalization. After students demonstrate generalized performance, the skill is typically reviewed so it is not forgotten. If skill atrophy is evident, reteaching is provided. The last component is review for maintenance. Provide reteaching of the skill and additional modeling for completing questions items on the skill if necessary. Now let's proceed with structure and organization. We know that if there is a lack of structure and organization in the instruction we provide, our students are more likely to misbehave. Now, structure and organization relate to how lessons are planned and formatted to ensure maximum teacher and student success. A structure and organization can occur in the following ways. The first one is lessons are planned for each day for across several days. Another is that lessons are scripted with an easy-to-follow daily plan instruction. And lessons are systematic in nature, so a logical order to the instructional tasks keeps errors to a minimum. To sum this up, structure and organization allow for the maximization of the amount of time students are engaged and successful, resulting in better students' outcomes. When students are successful during instruction, they are said to be experiencing academic learning time. Now, for academic progress to occur, students must not only be on task but must also achieve at high accuracy levels. Here's another contributing factor for effective instruction, the differentiated instruction. Students come to us with varying skill levels. Differentiated instruction allows teachers to meet the needs of all students moving from more teacher-directed instruction when students are naive learners to more student-centered instruction when students have the skills to do it on their own. Yes, so in differentiated instruction, instruction is moved from teacher-directed to student-centered. Now, there are two broad areas for differentiated instruction. Includes multisensory instruction and instruction matched to a student's learning needs. Now, multisensory instruction relates to instruction that incorporates all three learning sensory modes, auditory, visual, and tactile or kinesthetic, into each instructional session. That is, an auditory aspect of the lesson ensures that students participate based on what they hear. A visual aspect ensures that students participate based on what they see. And the tactile or kinesthetic aspect of the lesson ensures that students participate based on what they do. In this way, all three sensory modes are strengthened and reinforced, meeting the needs of all students. Now, the second type of differentiated instruction is matching instruction to a student's learning needs. It involves determining the appropriate placement, level, and instructional intensity required based on student's skill level. If instruction is not matched to a student's skill level, problem behaviors may result. These problem behaviors may be the result of an inability of students to complete the required level of performance and may serve to motivate students to escape or avoid the academic task. So differentiated instruction is achieved by ensuring that instruction matches each student's unique skill level. Now let's proceed with opportunities to respond. Results from intervention research show that increasing opportunities for students to respond correctly to academic questions, tasks, and demands also positively affects students' appropriate academic and social behaviors. Success promotes success. When students respond correctly and frequently, they learn more and misbehave less. Now, just remember that opportunities to respond are dependent on the types of activities within a lesson. For example, if students are required to read a passage and cite text evidence, fewer responses are possible as compared to punctuation and mechanics activities that may require filling in a blank with a correct response from a list of choices. Another factor is positive and corrective feedback. Effective positive and corrective feedback is a critical aspect of effective instruction. Without such feedback, students who commit errors will continue to practice those errors. And when students practice errors, they will have to spend time in the future relearning the skill that can lead to frustration and behavior issues. Alternatively, when students receive effective feedback, their correct responses are strengthened. Now, there are two primary aspects to effective positive and corrective feedback. The first one is immediate feedback. It has greater much impact on behavior than does delayed, because the behavior that occurs closest to the reinforcement will have a temporary relationship with it. Therefore, any effective instructional program must include immediate and frequent positive and corrective feedback to achieve the maximum results with student learning. Second is effective corrective feedback in the form of error correction. Procedures should be used. Effective error corrections often include model. You have to show the student the correct response. Lead. You have to help the student make the correct response. Test. You have to see if the student can make the correct response independently. And delayed test. You have to see if the student can make the correct response at a later time. Now, effective error correction avoids negativity. For example, phrases are, no, that's incorrect, you're guessing, you can do better than that, and you're not trying hard enough. Let's avoid these phrases. Now, teachers are encouraged to praise students for their effort and correct responses so that positive behaviors are more likely to occur in the classroom. Let's now proceed with motivational systems. One of the more important aspects of delivering effective instruction and decreasing management issues is the motivation of students to attend to instruction. Now, we have three motivational systems, namely engaging lessons, praise, and point systems. Now, engaging lessons can be useful motivating tools for students. If lessons are boring and laborious, students will be less likely to engage in them. Not surprisingly, students are more likely to be engaged and on task when the lesson is presented at a very lively pace, in which the lesson moves smoothly and quickly from input to response to feedback and back again. Thus, teachers should make every attempt to make lessons as exciting, as interesting as possible. Now, praise. Praise has been cited as an effective strategy for promoting school achievement and positive classroom behavior. The importance of praise cannot be overstated then. One critical aspect of the use of praise and other motivational systems is to create a positive relationship with the students. Such relationship can have significant impact on student behavior. Now, when praise is used, teachers should use specific praise at least 50% of the time. And then specific praise statements are positive statements made in a neutral or positive pleasant tone of voice to a desired behavior. Example, you did a good job solving the problem, Josh, rather than saying good job, Josh. So, it is critical to tell students what behaviors they are exhibiting correctly. And finally, point systems have been noted as effective motivators for students. Points are provided for specified student behavior. A point system may be used to provide grades to students and to award these grades in an objective way. In addition, points may be used for contingencies rather than or other than grades, such as to trade in points for special activities such as computer time and awards. Now, cheers, I'll give you some extra tips. When managing students' behavior in the classroom, it is important for us to be an authority figure. Because when teachers present themselves in authoritative manner, it helps them gain the respect and trust necessary to lead students. But how do we show students that we are an authority figure? I'll give you some tips. So be confident with whatever you do inside the classroom. If you are discussing a lesson, be confident with your ideas. Be direct and stand up straight. And also, church, it is also important to dress like an authority. Now, another is that you have to create consequences in order for you to cope with the different behavioral problems inside the classrooms. Now, I'll give you some characteristics of consequences. The first one is known by the students. So make sure that upon the creation of the consequence, the students are participant. Another is stress the cause and effect. And then in line with the school vision and reinforce positive behaviors, and also most importantly, not personal. Your consequence should not be personal. Okay, so that would be all for this lesson, cheers. So I hope that you have learned something from this video. And if you think that this video have helped you understand the concept of managing students' behavior in the classroom, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. And then leave your thoughts about this video on the comment section. So thank you for watching and happy learning!